Greetings friends. In past videos, we were seeing what radiation really is. How is present in everything. Being a fundamental part of the internal processes of the world. For its movement and readjustment. For the geoalchemy. That is to say, the creation of all the compounds and reagents that make up this world. We saw what energy really is, and how it is purifying itself at all levels. Always being a consequence of the alchemy. We also saw what precious stones really are. Those beautiful gem compounds, which function as radiant energy storage. The fruit of geoalchemy. Now, having already seen and understood all this, we will return to an impressive subject. A topic that you are now ready to understand. Do you remember that I told you that precious stones were not rocks? I also told them that even rocks aren't stones. But then, if the rocks are not rocks, what are they? Well, we saw in the last video how everything is made up of different isolated elements. Mixtures that can be separated and further purified by alchemy. Unite to generate great energy through the interaction or struggle of their contained primal charges. The ancient petrified wood on which actual rocks develop. And the alchemical conception of this world as a living being of colossal proportions. In those two videos, we talked about an impressive truth. About how all the rock in this world was once wood. Gigantic dead wood deposited on the ground. Covered and solidified by gigantic pressures and temperatures. Carbon, purified and mixed with other alchemical elements. Charging them with radiant energies and transmuting them into another crystalline form. Purifying their mixes and coexisting as an element. Now, in this video, I will show you something very impressive, and that I only told you in a very blowly way in those two past videos. How is that geology does not exist? So you can see that I don't contradict myself. Let's start. Look at this image, friends. Beyond the visual similarity, both materials are carbon. Carbon in different stages of its biological cycle. Can you tell me, how is coal made? In fact, there are two coals, the mineral and the vegetable. The difference obviously lies in its alchemical purity, given by its conditions of creation. For example, charcoal has been produced for thousands of years by carbonizing firewood, where this and other plant residues are heated in an oven at temperatures between 400 and 700 degrees Celsius in the absence of air. This seeks to eliminate the water contained in the wood by raising the temperature in a closed system. That is to say, human alchemy. An oven is a human alchemy. Simply emulating the natural phenomena. The geoalchemy. In the same way, The mineral coal arises after the carbonification or purification process by means of heat and pressure of organic materials present in the interior of the world. For this, we can say that the mineral coal would be a type of gem, samely created by the natural geoalchemy, a porous black-colored gem, and its extraction is carried out through mining deposits. That is, the betas, the line through which this element runs within the world. How this whole world is made up of layers. Layers with different information and energies stored as alchemical reactives. The tremendous similarities between our skin and the layers of the earth, as well as even more similarities between plant cells and the so-called rocks. Now we are going to look at some interesting and impressive alchemical comparisons that will prove, beyond a doubt, how geology is biology, and how this world really is a living being of colossal proportions. Look at this, friends. I know that for common modern thought, these conceptions would seem laughable. However, the similarity is inherent. Now let's see what our skin is like. The epidermis and its visible shape and composition. One more. Interesting, isn't it? How is it that the rock acquires such similar structures? Look at this other. They clearly appear to be straight transfer channels, pores and follicles. Even our muscles are identical. Check out the fibrous layers. The incredible similarity between things that should be apparently very different. Our fingerprints, our skin, and even the colors we adopt. The alchemical laws that are fulfilled at all levels of life. And I will explain this with a simple and incredible photo. It looks like an aerial view of a rocky canyon with iron betas, doesn't it? Well, what if I told you that it's a microscopic view of a crack in a steel plate? Do you see it? As above, so below. As it is inside, so it is outside. Watch this other example. In this way, we can corroborate the alchemical similarities that exist in the different strata, on the various levels that make up things. Its correspondence with alchemical laws. Let's remember how meat itself is also carbon. How wood is transformed into coal, drying up, hardening, and purifying until becoming semi-precious. Only geoalchemy can transmute the most beautiful and purest precious gems. This is due to the powerful pressures that occur internally, as well as the radioactivity caused by natural nuclear reactions, which are the ones that melt the basaltic rock and the other types of that rocky elements, melting them and joining them into lava, expelling them later as calorific and incandescent material, causing those movements of expansion and contraction. the today called earthquakes, the volcanoes, and what they really are. The ancient forces and legends involved in its hidden powers. But let's continue. Cause in the same way, vegetable carbon can be transformed into precious and semi-precious gems in basaltic crystals. Also, bones can be transformed into gems. Just look at ancient fossils whose crystallization led them to become black opals. Very precious and expensive gems, corroborating that all these precious stones were once wood. The so-called basaltic prisms, which are also proof of this vegetal crystallization. Proof of the existence of those gigantic trees named in ancient legends. Those trees perfectly cut, and whose broken and petrified wood stumps are all over the world. Silicon and carbon rocks, basalt. I mean, salt. This is very incredible. The salt and its secrets. Soon we will talk more about all this. But for now, I'm interested in you to understand that the current mountains themselves are broken and petrified fragments of those old exploited branches. Branches covered with mud and sediments over time. Sediments transformed into sedimentary rock in its upper layer and basaltic rock in its deep layer, as well as graphite and silicon. Hear the proof of all this that I say. That this mountain was an ancient cutted branch that was covered by mud. In some areas, internal basaltic fragments can even come out through the earth. I know it sounds amazing, even crazy, but science itself and alchemy corroborate that such transformations are possible. They confirm that everything in this world is made up of elements, mostly carbon, made up of water, charged with primal energy. We ourselves and our flesh are also partly water and carbon. The same carbon that makes up all life, just in different energy cycles. Observe how matter moves as if it were energy. Well, in fact, all matter is energy. Energy composed by the same laws that make up this dimensional plane. In this way, our internal systems would also respond to being microcosmos. Small groups of beings and organisms that depend on our charges and stored energies, of our will and care, that provide us with life. A whole universe of tiny beings inhabit within you. Beings for whom you are their universe. The microscope, we are told, was invented by Zacharias Janssen in 1590. Being able to see for the first time plant fibers, sperm, and blood capillaries. Nevertheless, there are records of very old magnifying glasses, the so-called lens of Nimrod, which, as its name indicates, is a very pure and convex piece of quartz crystal rock, which could have functioned properly as part of a very old microscope or telescope. These lenses were made only by alchemists and priests, those initiated into the ancient knowledge. Not everyone could have the knowledge to know that this was even plausible. In addition to the vision to look for such a pure quartz stone, as well as the carving and polishing skills to create that perfect lens. In Hindu temples, there is also rock evidence of ancient telescopes, which clearly dismantles the official Jesuit history. Continuing with this idea of the rocks, there is a very interesting idea that goes hand in hand with the alchemical laws in relation to the macro and the micro. An idea that corroborates and opens many more questions about the true origin of that phenomena. First of all, the idea of the macro and the micro is clearly another way of saying, as above, so below. Thus, recapitulating, we can conclude that the alchemical duality also exists at the macro level. And many of the phenomena that we believe are natural may not be, being like ancient dark macro alchemy. An example of this is the fires caused by laser weapons. The ones happened in California, and that we theorized was the same in Australia. Lenticular weapons placed on high-altitude balloons, on the clouds. According to my research, those weapons could have been used in antiquity with tremendously disastrous consequences. My theory arises from analyzing the micro and the macro from an alchemical perspective. Knowing the ancient truths of rocks and geology as a cycle of radiant transmutation. Knowing that, in the past, the legends about weapons as terrible as aces of enormous light were real and terrifying as the very gods who used them. Today we believe that all those ancient stories were just fantasy. However, now I will show you some coincidences that occur among all of nature, and that, by knowing the alchemical laws, we can give you a second analysis to really know how the rock obtained such capricious shapes. I explain this with the following picture. This is a view of a microscopic crater left by a laser on an iron plate. Now, this is the Great Blue Hole in Belize. Do you see the similarity? So, is it possible that the most gigantic holes have been made by radiant lasers coming from the higher planes? I know it sounds very crazy, but let's analyze it, because there is more evidence. Like this mountain in Hawaii, for example. It looks clearly similar to what science call a laser ablation crater. Here another example. Another one in Russia. In all cases, the shape is identical. An interaction that forms a dissociation of the surface in the manner of a plasma ring, releasing ions and particles that cool down and solidify. This released plasma particles clump together and solidify as nearly perfect spheres, scattering around the crater. All this is clearly visible around them, appreciating the burn left around the hole. Having already said all this, I hope you can now appreciate a little more the subtle beauty and similarity between all these planes of alchemical purification. the level-like planes that make up all dimensional realities. The radiation, or primal energies that they carry within, and that can be released through communion. The purification, as the purpose of all energy matter. And of that supreme will, that shaped all levels of purification. The great will, from which emanates all the alchemical knowledge used by us, and by the whole world. As a conclusion to this part, we can understand that there are amazing similarities between all matter, between their sizes and their stored energies. An amazing connection between physics and chemistry. A connection that they never tell us, so that we don't investigate further. Things that scientifically correspond with the magical processes used since ancient times. Processes of transformation and transmutation. Knowledge that induces the understanding of this world in an holistic way. Appreciating and marveling of that virtuous intelligence which was able to create from nothing all the interactions that we know occur at all levels of life. Even many others that are not yet discovered, or that remain hidden for selfish reasons. Hiding the alchemical technology for control. The pure science with the theoretical science. A dogma. The new techno-religion. Alchemy, as I mentioned before, is not a religion. It is the very knowledge of the laws that rule the entire dimensional structure. For this reason, the only thing that is higher than alchemy is thy great will. The only supreme intelligence capable of using divine alchemy. Its very essence marks what time itself is. They are excessively complex topics that you will not find on any other channel. What is the time itself, and what is its relationship with alchemy? This is a great topic, and has all to do with the radioactive alchemical cycles that we observe in reality. With all this that I said, perhaps some of you can already idealize the greatness contemplated in time itself. Soon we will talk more about all this, cause alchemy itself is the only one that can give an accurate explanation to all those phenomena that are hidden from us, so that we do not value what we lose. So that we do not value the future, but a banal present, full of ephemeral illusions. This channel will gradually reveal the original alchemical cosmogonic reality. The reality of everything that surrounds us, beyond all illusion. In each video I have left you some book covers that refer a little to the topic addressed. However, I cannot include sources that textually state the most astonishing claims we reveal, cause they do not exist as it, but in the way of old engravings and symbols of the occult. So, all this knowledge that I present to you is partly the result of my personal research on alchemy, and from my deduction and interpretation of the ancient texts of Hermetic mysticism. From Celtic and Druidic occultism, where the symbols are always used to hide the methods between sacred language, thus protecting the divine and pure character of alchemy. In a future video we will talk about all this. In the meantime, I can only ask you to share, since it is the only way to reach more people. People that is awake, but that still don't know what to do with all these truths. We must educate for the future and try to instruct the children on these subjects. Let them know that things are not as they tell us, and that they must go against everything inculcated by this self-destructive system. Train them to realize how amazing and perfect creation itself is, so that they no longer seek to be part of all this madness. Let's be the saviors. It is time. We speak the truth, and we will be heard. You just have to wake up from the great deception. The system does not work. Time to get out. Reactive Factory Project.